Hi, I'm Daniel Linder, married family therapist for over 30 years, practicing in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm an addiction specialist and a relationship trainer, and I created the relationship model of addiction. And I am here to support you and be a guide and an inspiration for you on your path of recovery as you learn to get out of addictive relationships and into healthy, emotionally nourishing relationships. That's the recovery journey. And what I've been talking about the last few weeks was this stage of recovery: self-work, self-care, developing a relationship with yourself, being your own best friend. What does that look like? What does that entail? So today I'm going to talk to you about the specific piece of developing a relationship with yourself that I want to talk about today is being aware of when you're reacting, when you're getting lost in the past. So before I described the relationship with yourself as being aware of what you're thinking, feeling, and wanting, and what your experience is at any given point in time. And I'm going a step further right now. I'm talking about being aware of when you're reacting to something in the past. And I call this entering the time machine. When you enter a time machine, it'd be really helpful for you to know that you're zooming away into the past, and not quite you're there yourself there presently in present time, and that's going to have negative consequences for you. So let me give you an example of what happens, what can happen. So we have Elliot and Stephanie, okay? So they're together driving in the car, and Stephanie is very upset. And Stephanie's upset and sharing with Elliot what's happened to her. She had a relationship with a friend, a best friend, and they're having problems, and she doesn't know if she's lost a friend, and she's very, very upset and getting into it with Elliot. And so she's kind of depressed, she's kind of pessimistic, she's kind of very disconsolate, very upset. And Elliot is finding that he's having a very hard time listening to her, being with her, and knowing how to respond and how to support her, what to say, what to do. So this triggered Elliot into a time machine. Elliot was back in time. Elliot went back Elliot actually lives in a time machine. He was raised by a mother who made sure that there was never any negative feelings or difficult feelings in the space, and made sure that there was never any conflict. So he lived his life in a conflict-free, positive feeling world all the time and didn't know of anything else. Not only that, he internalized that experience of how the world is and his relationship to it. So he derives his self-esteem, as I talked about before, his well-being and sense of self-worth is externally based, which means that as long as he's in the world that is positive feelings and conflict-free, and he's able to maintain that, he's feeling good about himself. He's in familiar territory, he's feeling good about himself. However, when conflicts arise and difficult feelings come up, negative feelings come up, he's a fish out of water. And so when Stephanie was sharing this story with him, and she was having a range of expressing feelings that were difficult, painful, he was sinking, he was getting lost, and he was starting to have, his level of discomfort was increasing, and he was began having a lot of self-doubt. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do something to fix Stephanie and make her feel better? And he was just feeling, and then what is wrong with us? Maybe Stephanie and I are not good together. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten involved in this relationship. And he was having all kinds of doubts like this because the emotions that were being expressed in that space were difficult and negative, if you will. So while he's thinking, Stephanie now is watching him kind of get uncomfortable, and she's kind of getting annoyed and frustrated and irritated with him, that he's not really able to respond, he's not really paying attention, and he's reacting in a way that doesn't feel like he's there for her and that he's with her and listening to her. And so she expresses annoyance about that, and then he feels worse and gets more discouraged and more insecure and more filled with self-doubts. Now, so I tied Elliot's way of being in the world to how he was brought up with his mother and how he internalized it. Now, interestingly, Stephanie was really starting to feel badly about herself, like, she's so negative and he's so positive, and why can't she be like him? More like him, and what's wrong with her? Why is she always so negative? And she was getting really down on herself because she was experiencing and expressing negative feelings or difficult feelings. So when we were talking about this, Stephanie suddenly remembered, like when she was 13 years old, she was writing in her journal. She just remembered going back, writing in her journal when she was 13, be nice to mommy, be nice to mom, be nice to mom. She remembers that she wrote in her journal, be nice to mom, like 100 times on the page, just kept repeating that, because she was feeling so badly that her mother, while her mother was so positive, when she was expressing her much wider range of feelings and reactions and angers and hurts and struggles that she was going through, her mother kind of labeled her as negative, and she had to come out of this place that she wanted to be in that was positive or more wonderful or more pleasant. And Stephanie began to internalize that whenever she has difficult feelings coming up and she expresses them, there's something wrong with her. So she was feeling responsible for Elliot's reaction and getting down on herself in the process. So she was entering a time machine as well. They were both in time machines, reacting to each other, not being together and connecting with each other in present time. So when we talked about this, they were able to see that their being in the time machine sent them off into this reactive place, and they weren't in present time. And then they got to experience, or what the contrast would be when they are in present time. And they were able to see that their reactivity caused them to disconnect from each other, miss each other, and relate to figments of their past. They weren't relating, he was relating as if he was living in the world that he was brought up in. She was reacting as if he was her mother and that she was bad for having the feelings that she was having. So they came to a place where they want to provide the space to get to know each other, to express each other's feelings freely, and have a much greater space, create a bigger space and safety to have a wider emotional bandwidth, so they don't have to live with each other and exist with each other in this narrow bandwidth where they would both feel okay, so they can expand that and be spontaneous and real and honest and expressive based on what they're feeling in the moment. So that's an example of mindful practice. Having a relationship with yourself means, among other things, that you can catch yourself when you're reacting, when you've entered the time machine, and then bring yourself back to present time. So hope that's useful for you, and you could use that in practice in your daily life. And remember, I'll see you next time. The quality of your relationships is the quality of your life.